In Book 21, Penelope, like many unwilling princesses of myth, fairy tale, and legend, proposes an impossible task for those who wish to marry her. By doing so, she causes the bloody events that lead to the restoration of her husband. The test involves stringing Odysseus' huge bow, an impossible feat for anyone except Odysseus himself. Odysseus had left his bow home in Ithaca 20 years earlier. Now the queen reached the storeroom door and halted. Here was an oaken sill cut long ago and sanded clean and fetted true. 4 square the door jambs and the shining doors were set by the careful builder. Penelope untied the strap around the curving handle, pushed her hook into the slit, aimed at the bolts inside, and shot them back. Then came a rasping sound as those bright doors the key had sprung gave way. A bellow like a bull's vault in a meadow, followed by her light footfall entering over the plank floor. Herb-scented robes lay there in chest, but the lady's milk-white arms went up to lift the bow down from a peg in its own polished bow case. Now Penelope sank down, holding the weapon on her knees, and drew her husband's great bow out, and sobbed, and bit her lip, and let the salt tears flow. Then back she went to face the crowded hall. And why do you think she's sobbing as she's looking at this bow? You know, she hasn't seen this bow in 20 years. That can make her sad. Maybe she's saying goodbye because maybe someone can fulfill the test she's going to ask and she's going to have to marry him. So think about what may be going through her mind now and think about what may be making her so sad. Then back she went to face the crowded hall, tremendous bow in hand, and on her shoulder hung the quiver spiked with coughing death. And the quiver is the thing that holds the arrows that the soldiers would have slung over their arms to hold their arrows. Behind her maids bore a basket full of axe heads, bronze and iron implements for the master's game. Thus in her beauty she approached the suitors, and near a pillar of the solid roof she paused, her shining veil across her cheeks, her maids on either hand, and still, then spoke with the banqueters. My lords, hear me. Suitors indeed, you recommended this house to feast and drink in, day in and night, my husband being long gone, long out of mind. You found no justification for yourselves, none, except your lust to marry me. Stand up, then. We now declare a contest for that prize. Here is my lord Odysseus' hunting bow. Bend the string if you can. Who sends an arrow through iron axe helve sockets, 12 in a line? I join my life with his, and leave this place, my home, my rich and my beautiful bridal house, forever to me be remembered, though I dream it only. So what she's asking the men to do is a 2-part test. I'm going to kind of draw on here, so bear with me. So the first thing she asks the men to do, okay, I thought I was going to draw on here. Let me try this again. Okay. That's not what I want. Let me try again. That's not it. Erase it. Okay, let me try this one more time, and if not, if we don't get it, I'm not going to do anything. So I think this may work. Okay, so if we have a bow, that's not what a bow looks like. A bow looks like this. there's like a little handle here. So she asks the men to string the bow. And if any of you have ever done archery before, you know you have to bend this top here to string it. So that's the first part. The second part is she lines up axe heads. Okay, here's kind of like an axe. Okay, kind of like an upside down axe. And on the end are little rings. She lines up 12 of these, and she asks the men to shoot an arrow through all 12. And it's a feat that only Odysseus can do. Many of the suitors boldly try the bow, but not a man can even bend it enough to string it. 2 men had meanwhile left the hall, swineherd and cowherd, in companionship, one downcast as the other. But Odysseus followed them outdoors. Outside the court, and coming up, said gently, "You, herdsman, and you too, swineherd, I could say a thing to you, or should I keep it dark?" So right here, he's having an internal conflict. He's saying, should I tell you I'm Odysseus, or should I keep it a secret? And I want you to think about 3 things that he maybe like have conflict with if he told them. So if he told them, what risk might he be taking? Think of 3 reasons or ways things could go wrong. No, speak. So he decides to speak. My heart tells me. Would you be men enough to stand by Odysseus if he came back? Suppose he dropped out of a clear sky as I did. Suppose some god should bring him. Would you bear arms for him or for the suitors? The cowherd said, "Ha! Let the master come. Father Zeus, grant our old wish. Some courier or messenger guide him back. Then judge what stuff is in me and how I manage arms." Likewise, Eumaeus fell to praying all heaven for his return, so that Odysseus, sure at least of these, told them, I am home, for I am he. I bore adversities or hardships, but in the 20th year I am ashore in my own land. I find the 2 of you, alone among my people, longed for my coming, prayers I never heard except your own that I might come again. So now what is in store for you, I'll tell you. If Zeus brings down the suitors by my hand, I promises marriages to both and cattle. And houses built near mine, and you shall be brothers in arms of my Telemachus. So he says, if you join me in my fight, and I will marry you, I will give you land, and I will treat you as my son. Here, let me show you something else, a sign that I am he, that you can trust me. Look, this old scar from the tusk wound that I got boar hunting on Parnassus. Shifting his rags, he bared the long gash. Both men looked, and knew, and threw their arms around the old soldier, weeping, kissing his head and shoulders. He as well took each man's head and hands to kiss, then said to cut it short, else they might weep till dark. Break off, no more of this. Anyone at the door could see and tell them. Drift back in, but separately at intervals after me. Now listen to your orders. When the time comes, those gentlemen to a man will be dead against giving me a bow or quiver. Defy them. Eumaeus, bring the bow and put it in my hands there at the door. Tell the woman to lock their own door tight. Tell them if someone hears the shock of arms or groans of men in hall or court, not one must show her face, but keep still at her weaving. Phylliades, run to the outer gate and lock it. Throw the crossbar and lash it. Now, Odysseus, still in his beggar's clothes, asks to try the bow. The suitors refuse to allow a mere beggar to try where they have failed, but Penelope insists that the stranger be given his chance. The suspense is very great by this act. Penelope has accepted her husband as a suitor by giving the beggar the the bow, she's basically saying, I'm going to honor whoever my test. If he's able to string it, then I'll marry him. Eumaeus the swineherd hands Odysseus the bow and tells the nurse to retire with Penelope and the maids to the family chambers, or the harem, and to bolt the doors. Odysseus had told Telemachus to remove the suitors' weapons from the great hall. Now he takes the bows. And Odysseus took his time, turning the bow, tapping it every inch, for borings that termites might have made while the master of the weapon was abroad. The suitors were watching him, and some jested among themselves. A bow lover. And so basically, he's taking his time to look over that bow. He hasn't seen it in 20 years. It's his weapon. It's showing that he's kind of collected and calm and ready for what's going to happen. Dealer in old bows, maybe has one like it at home, or has an itch to make one for himself. See how he handles it, this sly old buzzard. And one disdainful suitor added this, may his fortune grow an inch for every inch he bends it. But the man skilled in all ways of contending, satisfied by that great bow's look and heft, like a musician, like a harper, when with quiet hand upon his instrument he draws between his thumb and forefinger a sweet new string upon a peg. So effortlessly Odysseus in one motion strung the bow, then slid his right hand down the cord and plucked it, so the taut gut vibrating hummed and sang a swallow's note. In the hushed hall it smote the suitors, and all their faces changed. Then Zeus thundered overhead, one loud crack for a sign, and Odysseus laughed within him that the son of a crooked-minded Cronus had flung that omen down. He picked one ready bow from the table where it lay bare. The rest were waiting still in the quiver for the young men's turn to come. He knocked it, meaning he put the edge of the bow on the string or the cord, let it rest across the hand grip, and drew the string and grooved butt of the arrow, aiming from where he sat upon the stool. Now flashed arrow from twanging bow, clean as a whistle, through every socket ring, and grazed not one, to thud with the heavy brazen head beyond. Then, quietly, Odysseus said, Telemachus, the stranger you welcomed in your hall has not disgraced you. I did not miss, neither did I take all day stringing the bow. My hand and eye are sound, not so contemptible as the young men say. The hour has come to cook their lordship's mutton, supper by daylight, other amusements later, with the song and the harpings that adorn a feast. He dropped his eyes and nodded, and the Prince Telemachus, true son of King Odysseus, belted his sword on, clapped hand to his spear, and with a clink and glitter of keen bronze, stood by his chair in the forefront near his father. And so Odysseus was able to perform the task. He was able to string the bow and shoot the arrow through 12 of those rings. And then he said, now let's celebrate with a dinner.